So you can see this kit comes with our coilover,
the coilovers with the springs on the back here.
Last time you guys saw this thing, it made its first 1/8 mile pass at Greer Dragway. This week, we're officially starting our teardown. We've been talking about it for a few months now that we're going to put a QA1 4-link in this thing. So the first thing that we got to do to kind of get into that, we got to get it tore down. So we got to pull the bed off of it. This truck has leaf springs in the back. It has very little suspension travel, and we really need to, we're going to, on top of the 4-link itself, we're going to add a C-notch to it too to give us enough travel so that we can use those coilovers that we're going to use on this. So we basically have to completely disassemble the whole rear of this truck. So we're going to be pulling the running boards, fenders, bed, probably we'll end up pulling the gas tank and everything out of it so that we can get it down, because we need to get this thing down to a bare rear end so that we can add all of our brackets and everything to it. So you can see this kit comes with our coilover shocks that are going to go into the back here. They are double adjustable. We've got compression and rebound adjustments to it. This kit comes with everything that we're going to need. Bars for the upper bars, bars for the lower bars, tubes for the shock mounts, tubes for the upper bar mounts, front upper bar mounts, and there's just all of the brackets. These are plates that are going to go on the ends of the tubes. We've got all of the bolts, all of the brackets that we'll need for shock mounts. These are bar adjustment plates. Man, I mean, look at all these. Like, look how nice this stuff is. All this stuff made in the US. We love working with companies like QA1, and we are really, really excited about this. These are some really nice rod ends for all this. Comes with all grade A hardware, grade 8 hardware. And so, before we can even touch this stuff, let's go ahead and start tearing this thing down. Let's see if we can get this thing, the bed, at minimum, the bed off this thing right now. Don't adjust your sets. The car and the truck have been flip-flopped. So we knew we were going to end up having to cut on this frame probably at some point. Or, well, definitely at some point. And we wanted to get this moved over here away from our gas cans that are over there. So we just did the swap over here because there's going to be quite a bit of work to do here. And plus just a lot easier access. So I went ahead and started pulling all this. Got all the wiring. So I have, the way I had this set up, I had one big ground wire that runs back here to this stud back here, and all of my rear tail lights, tag light, fuel pump, and all that stuff was grounded, and that stud is actually grounded to a stud where the battery is connected. So it's basically with it being grounded there, it's grounded directly to the battery. That's one thing that I think has been such a big help on this truck, not having any electrical issues. We went like above and beyond, probably way over what we needed to make sure that everything was grounded very, very well. So I am very happy with that as far as that goes. But I went ahead and got all that pulled out of the frame rails here. Now the next thing that we're going to have to do is I'm going to have to disconnect our fuel lines, get those pulled out. This is like a Corvette style fuel pressure regulator slash filter. So we're going to pull it out, and because we're going to C-notch this thing. So we told you guys about that earlier. But we're going to box this, we're going to C-notch this probably somewhere about right here, come up, over, and back down. And we're going to kind of integrate that C-notch into the bars for the upper shock mounts and the upper trailing arm mounts and all of that. So we're going to try and integrate all that into one piece so that the bars that run across here are going to be attached to that boxing. But anyway, we'll get to that a little later on in a lot more detail. I'm going to finish stripping this stuff out here so that we've got easy access to everything. We'll take you through some measurements that we took to make sure that we get everything how we want it, and then we will get to taking the whole rear suspension apart. We are officially stripped down to the bare minimum of everything. The only thing that's left back here is the rear suspension as it sits right now. So let's talk about what all is going away. We're going to ditch these leaf springs. These things are really narrow. I think they're like 1.25 inches or something like that. Width, really narrow. There are 3, 6, 7, 8 leaves in this pack, so it's very, very heavy. And if you can see, even without the full weight of the truck on it, these springs are basically flat, and once it's loaded they actually turn down here in the back. It's part of why this truck rides so rough, is because it just has not much suspension travel. The other thing is our U-bolt, if you look there, it has actually been getting into the bottom of this frame at different points whenever it got into certain situations, potholes or whatever. It would bottom out, and you knew it when it did it. So that's why we're going to end up having to put this C-notch in here to give us some more room on that. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to lower the truck 1 inch in the back here. So we're going to set this ride height, and we're going to get everything set to where it needs to be so that we don't have to make any adjustments with the spring on the coilover, so that will stay in the center of the travel of the shock so that we can kind of do all that. We'll talk about that more. Now these shocks will go away. They're inboard mounted here. The shocks are not mounted to the axle housing. They're mounted to these plates that are on the bottom of these U-bolts. So all that's going to come out pretty easily. You can see it even better on this side. So all of that's going away, and that's kind of our starting point, is getting this down to a bare rear end housing. And we'll also be taking these spring perches off. We'll cut those off and all that too. So there's a lot of stuff that has to come off of this thing that's going to prepare us for the 4-link, and it's going to be a lot lighter and a lot better setup in general compared to what we have here.
We took every precaution. We're going to try to put this axle housing back exactly in the center of the frame rails, right where it needs to be. I'm talking about front to rear, make the wheelbase correct. We're going to end up making in this area, somewhere along in this area, we're going to come up with a piece of 2x4 rectangular tubing, go across here and then go back down to here so we can have a C-notch. All of this section of the frame will be taken out. It will be gone. But the 2x4 rectangular tubing, there'll be a notch cut out of the top of this. The tubing will go inside this frame rail, well to the bottom flange and well to the side plate. So it'll be pretty stiff, pretty rigid, pretty safe, because this is going to carry, of course, all the weight of the truck. The shock mounts will be, the coilover shock mounts will be off the back. We got rear mount coilover shocks. They will be mounted, of course, to the back of the axle housing, and they'll come up in this area and attach to a tube that goes across, and we're going to try to attach it, well, we're not going to try, we're going to attach it to that 2x4 C-notch. That shock mounts will be attached to that tube, and we took we made some pretty careful measurements and drawn some lines so that the shocks don't get in. We've not got a lot of room between the back of the axle housing and the front of the fuel tank. And when we first started talking about this, I was kind of thinking we might have to buy, well, we both were kind of thinking we might have to put a different fuel tank in it, but I think we're going to get by with it okay. There's not a lot of distance between the axle housing and the fuel tank, but I think we've got enough. We've hung the coilovers with the springs on it back here, and I think that we'll be able to maintain that fuel tank. So we just try to take every measurement we can, center measurements, the distance from we picked a place on the front of this. You can't see them. If you look on his side, you can look at the front of the running board mount on the frame rail. We measured from the front of that to the face, the front of the 3-inch tube on the axle housing, and it was the same. It was right on the same measurement, so we know that's accurate. So when we put this back, we're going to use that measurement. This won't have any effect on it, but we're going to kind of keep in mind that we're going to mount the tube for the upper shock mounts here. The other thing, we're going to try to make the front upper control arm tube to go through that same C-notch, so it'll all be attached to 2x4 rectangular tubing. So we're going to try to mount all of that, both tubes, the upper control arm mounts and the upper shock mounts will be mounted to that C-notch. Hey, have I ever told you anything wrong? Have I ever lied to you?
No.
That's the that lies to you. I won't lie to you. I'll try to tell you stuff that help you.
I don't know how we're going to package all this stuff with that tubing in here.
Well, this tube, I'm thinking, this tube will be right along in this area right here. Right in the bottom edge of that rectangular tubing. And right in the bottom edge of it. It'll go right across through here. Those, did you look at those? They have to be up here, so that angle's not going to be. They'll probably be here. The tube will be here, and those rods will run right through here.
They run this.
Huh?
They run inboard.
That's what I said.
You just said they run in here. They run like this.
Oh, they run this way.
Yeah.
I said you could do it either way.
Oh yeah.
Do they specifically say they have to run inboard?
No,
Because
it
with
says you can run it.
with our situation, I'm thinking that'd be better to run here.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't say you have to. It says if you're going to run them the other way, that you just have to swap sides with the mounts on the rear end housing.
I wonder what the advantage or disadvantage would be. I honestly don't know. I don't know.
I don't know if there is disadvantage or advantage. So all that triangulation is doing is keeping the rear end.
The only thing that's kind of run through my mind, and I had to think of it to remember what I was thinking, is if this is running from here, if you've got the mount here, running back to here, it looks like it's going to have more support than it would if you just run it into the center of a tube. You know what I'm saying? Looks like it'd be less likely to
Right.
flex if you run it over this way. And that's kind of my thinking. And I had to think about it to remember why I was thinking about. I think it would be better. How do they run on Chevelles? That's the way they run. Old G-body, that's the way they run. Because the ears, if you're going to look at that 12 volt, the ears for the upper control arm mounts are on the axle housing. Mm-hmm. And they go from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of makes sense to me about making it more rigid.
So we pulled the springs off. We got the U-bolts and everything out of here. Got the spring drop down. It's just hanging there. So the rear end is disconnected from that altogether. We set our pinion angle to 0, which is where QA1 wants it to be. So you can make your adjustments with the upper trailing arm, that you can adjust your pinion angle that, but they want it set at 0 to start the process. And the other thing that we're doing here is making sure that our rear end is square in the truck. We noticed whenever we first did this truck that this tire on this side was a little closer to the fender than on that side. So we realized that the rear end was just a little bit out, and that's what we're measuring now. So Dad's measuring from the outside of the frame to the inside of the brake rotor here, outside of the frame, inside of the brake rotor on both sides, and we're making sure we've got it square. How do we look?
Come this way just a little bit.
Okay.
Good. That's good.
So what's that?
That's right, 6 7/16. And that's 6.5. It needs to come just a tick more that way. Good. Ooh, that's good.
Too much?
No.
What's it now?
It's getting to 30 seconds.
Oh.
15, 30 seconds or something. 6 7/16. That's square, and if we get the front to rear correct, we'll be good.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so now we'll adjust the front to rear. What we'll do, we just got a jack in here right now holding the front end of the rear end, the front of the rear end up. We'll end up getting another jack stand here and putting under that. We've done a lot of work like this on jack stands. Dad's put so many rear ends and stuff and all kinds of things like that, doing it just like this. Now he is setting the distance, the wheelbase basically, distance from the front to the rear. And again, we mentioned it earlier, we're using this back side of the running board mount, and we're using that as our reference point to get that measured in. What do you got?
20 on both sides.
20 on both sides. So we've got that exactly where that needs to be. Yeah, so we move, I guess the rear end's about a 16th further forward. If you look at our original measurements, we had it 19 and 15/16. We wrote it on the frame there.
That actually got a 16th further back. Rear end's
Further back. Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, so it's 16th further back. Yeah, exactly. So we're 16th further back now, which is fine. No problem with that. So this is where this rear end needs to end up, but it needs to be higher. So we still, remember, we have to get to that 2 inches between the lower part of the frame. Oh, you already have it set there? Oh, I didn't realize that. Just kidding. Dad's already got it there. So he moved these jack stands up when I wasn't looking and got that there. So this right here is where this rear end housing needs to live when it's going down the road. So you can see why we have to put the C-notch in now to give us more clearance there, because those QA1 double adjustable shocks have 5 inches of total suspension travel. So they'll have about a 2.5 inch up and 2.5 inch down. We're going to want those to be able to extend more than the compression, but it's okay. We're just going to be really, really close to center of the travel. So one kind of bonus to all of this that we think that we want to prove is that this is all going to be substantially lighter than what was on here. So if you look at this, we've got this one leaf spring in here and it weighs 40 pounds. So that means there's 80 pounds of springs on here. That's not even including, here, let me go grab those plates, hold on. So now with all of the U-bolts, plates, and nuts and everything, it's 45.2 pounds. That means 90 pounds just in the springs, U-bolts, and those plates, not including anything else that we've took off so far. We're gonna put some of that back with the 2x4 tubing that's going in here, and we're gonna, you know, with the bars for mounting and stuff like that. But these coilover spring or shocks right here are so light. I mean, I can throw them on a scale too. So I threw the spring, the shock, and everything on there, 6.2 pounds.
You didn't weigh the shock?
Yeah, I did. I put the whole... Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I didn't have the shock on there, so that's probably another couple of pounds. So the old shock is also 2.4 pounds, so that puts us up to 47, 48 pounds just on this one side. And then if we put this guy on here, that's the spring, shock, and the bushings and everything with them, we're at 6.2 pounds. So even adding the bars and everything, we're not going to get anywhere near the almost 100 pounds of spring and plates and everything that were making up the rear suspension on this truck originally. So now you can see with the springs and everything off of this, kind of what this is going to look like. I mean, it's just amazing how much gets pulled off of it, you know, how much more room and space there is for all these activities we're going to do. So so to talk you through it just a little bit, the lower trailing arm mounts will be roughly where these spring perches are. Then on the inside of this will be the shock mounts. Then on the most inside of the axle housing is going to be the mounts for the upper trailing arms. Well, I'll tell you guys, if pulling almost 100 pounds off the back of this truck doesn't motivate you to keep digging, I don't know what will. We're just gonna wrap us up for the day. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. All right, we are back. The next steps is just a little bit of disassembly we've still got to wrap up this morning. So if we look at it here, we're gonna cut these spring perches off. Dad's got the torch out. He's gonna torch those off because he fully welded those on there real nice and solid. We're going to also take an air hammer and chisel out these rivets for the front spring hangers. So these are the original front spring hangers, but our plan is QA1 doesn't send anything to mount the front lower trailing arms on because they recommend to use these, but these are going to end up being way too long for what we want to get the ratios that we want. So we're going to knock these off and move them back here. We think, that's our theory, we can take these off. They need to come off either way because we're going to need something here. So if we don't use these, they need to come off just to shed the weight. But if we do use them, we can just, we think, move them right back here, drill some new holes and bolt them in and be able to utilize them for the front mounts of the lower trailing arms. So that's what we're going to wrap up this morning. Just finish getting this stuff knocked out and we'll be ready to go back the other direction here shortly. We decided to save the mess, so we're just taking the rear end outside. While Dad is out there grinding, I'm going to go ahead and start knocking these, the heads of these rivets off of these spring perches and go ahead and get them out of the way too, so we can get ready to relocate them. We had a little oopsie with the rear end out here, but Dad's already fixing it. Got a little bit through the housing with the torch.
It ain't funny.
Someone got a little overzealous. Papa would be so mad at you.
Oh, yeah.
He'd call you all kinds of terrible things, tell you how bad that a month, probably, yeah. Yeah, but anyway, so he went ahead and filled this in, get the leak stopped. You can see it was kind of running out a little bit there, so now we can grind that off. We've just about got this thing ground down to where we want it. We'll be ready to roll it back inside then.
We talked about not doing that.
Yeah, that was literally the first thing he said. He said, don't let me cut through that axle housing. New front trailing arm mounts. Alright guys, that's going to wrap us up for this week. I told you this is going to be a multi-part deal. First part here is all the disassembly in our first setup. Next week, we'll talk you through the kit and getting us ready to go. And you can see, a little sneak peek, we do get it together here eventually, but I'm thinking this is going to end up being 3 parts. We'll have the initial disassembly you saw today. We'll have the setup and getting everything ready to go, deciding on how we're going to put it all together, and then the final assembly and everything, probably 3 parts. I don't know, we'll find out, but it's definitely going to be multi-parts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We've been putting updates about this thing as we go, so we're a little ahead on social media versus here long form on YouTube. We appreciate everybody that's watched, everybody that's subscribed, everybody that's followed. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week.